when I first found out is when Chris came to me and told me that he had attempted suicide. That was the first that I even knew that my son was sick.
I would think, I don't want to assume, you probably start thinking, what did I miss?
I can't ever get rid of all my guilt, but I won't let it cripple me because it wasn't done maliciously. It was done because of lack of knowledge. And it wasn't like somebody was staring me in the face with a sign saying, your kid has mental illness, don't you notice?
You go probably into overdrive at that point.
We estimated we called about 80 doctors trying to find someone. So we did. He went to a doctor. He had the typical experience of going to the wrong doctor and getting bad advice. But it was IOCDF that saved us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of the Get to Know OCD podcast. My name is Patrick McGrath. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for NOCD. NOCD is an online platform for the treatment of OCD and related conditions. If you're looking for help in those areas, check us out at NOCD.com. And if you like the Get to Know OCD podcast, well, subscribe to the NOCD YouTube channel. Today, I'm honored to have Liz Trondsen here. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hi.
We are friends. We've known each other for a while. And you are a big player in the OCD community. So is your son, Chris, who we had on recently. And we're excited to have that interview with him. And as I was talking to him, I thought, I need you on here too, from some of the things we chatted about. So before we get into some things, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you got into the world of obsessive compulsive disorder?
Well, my son became ill. And so naturally I needed to find ways to help him. And that's where I first learned about OCD. And once he became better, he is an advocate for the IOCDF, and it's very important work to him. And I wanted to do that work with him. At first, we did a family support group because there wasn't one available, and I really wanted to have other support. And then we helped the affiliate grow in Southern California, and now we both work on that. So we keep pretty busy with that. And then he does things with the national level.
And the IOCDF, for those who aren't aware, is the International OCD Foundation as well. Mm-hmm. And tell us about OCD SoCal and the work that you're doing there, because there's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, we started very small. We started with one couple who spent a year doing the paperwork and then decided to pass it on. And we took it on, and when we look back at our first event in a church basement somewhere with no air conditioning compared to what we do now, we were very lucky, very fortunate to get some really strong people on the board. And we started to grow. We just started to grow to provide other services, to get people to volunteer, to get people to show up at our events. I will say that we have some people on our board that are rather than organizing people, they're idea people. And they thought, well, why can't we do a conference? Why can't we do a speaker series? Why can't we do whatever we want? And so we branched out to do some pretty exciting things. And we're really just, our only barrier is time, is how much time we have to do things. But we always have great ideas that we want to keep trying.
Yeah, and your support groups I've had the chance to join some of those, and how much fun those have been to be able to come in and speak and speak at the conference that you do as well.
Yes, and we've been very happy to have you. Thank you.
Oh, of course.
Yes, no, we were surprised our first conference that we had so many wonderful people that were willing to speak, and it was fun. Yeah. It was fun.
With what happened with Chris, and again, we've talked to Chris. We know a lot of the history piece of it. But I wanted to have you on because one of the things that I think doesn't get talked enough about nationally, you do a great job with your family support group in Southern California, but I wanted to maybe bring this to more of a national discussion, is the role of families in OCD and OCD treatment, and learning from your trials and tribulations and kind of what you all went through. So if you're okay with it, I'm going to ask some kind of deep questions around that, if that's all right. Chris starts to show symptoms. What is your reaction? How do you first respond to this?
Well, that's the thing is, I did not recognize any symptoms when he was a teenager.
Hmm.
I had no frame of reference for mental illness. It was never suggested to me.
Okay.
I had no history in my family, although we now know my dad was a hoarder. We just thought he was a collector, a
Hmm.
very big collector. Um, when I went to get help, no one suggested mental illness, so the concept never occurred to me. So
Gotcha.
I believed my child was just an angry, difficult teenager. So there was no thought of mental illness. And then Chris moved out and he got a job, he moved out, he was going to go to school. Quite frankly, I thought, this is great. I mean, a lot of kids don't move out. This is great. Now, he didn't want to talk to me, he didn't want to participate, but he's 18. I just was clueless, absolutely clueless. And when I first found out is when Chris came to me and told me that he had attempted suicide. That was the first that I even knew that my son was sick.
That had to be a devastating blow to get that news. Hmm.
Yes, yeah, that's there's no words for it. To think that that could have happened, that's just still too hard to imagine.
Right. It's obviously a shock. A child comes to you and says they're suicidal.
Right.
They've attempted suicide. We hear these stories. Then I would think, I don't want to assume, you probably start thinking, what did I miss along the way? Were there things that were happening with Chris, or maybe signs or something at all that things were leading up to this, or not?
I would say with knowledge, I could look and say,
Yeah.
at that time, no, because I didn't even know what signs and symptoms of OCD were. Chris had a certain inflexibility about him and a sense of urgency that things had to be a certain way. And I took that as a personality trait. But, in knowing more about OCD and BDD, that he has body dysmorphic disorder, I realized that, he was 100% focused on himself and nothing else mattered. Whatever he needed to do right then, look in the mirror, turn off the light, whatever it was more important than anything in the world.
Yeah.
But I took that as teenage behavior.
Sure.
So I just think now, with the fact that all the advocacy that's gone on in mental health and IOCDF and stuff, I think now at least people might have that option in their head that there could be mental health going on here. But that wasn't a topic. I mean, you certainly didn't run out and go, "Oh, my kid has mental health issues. This is great. I now know."
Yeah.
So I didn't. I only thought it was that. We have the famous picture of him lighting up his cars, and they all had to be in order and everything like that. And we thought it was cute. That kind of thing. And
Right.
I didn't know that he was spending all day at school in the bathroom and stuff. Nobody ever told me these things. So yeah, it was just, I put it up to his behavior.
I hear a lot when people come in and families come in where they feel guilty. They should have seen this sooner. I'm going to bet you get asked that as well, too. How did you deal potentially with some of the guilt, maybe about my kid's gone to this level of suicide thoughts and I missed things maybe or that? And how do you talk to other people about this as well, too, that without maybe being an expert in this, you wouldn't have even known to know something like that?
No. I can't ever get rid of all my guilt.
Yeah.
Certainly since, Chris is no longer the focus, I've spent some time in support groups for myself and in
Good.
things for myself. I just have to accept that this is what happened. And I don't try to get rid of the guilt that I feel because it's there. But I won't let it cripple me because it wasn't done maliciously. It was done because of lack of knowledge. I think we all could spend the whole lifetime, I should have known this, I should have known that, I should have known when he turned left that he was going to do this. We can't. So it doesn't go away. It's just there. And it's there and you move on. I just have to move on from it. I wish I would have seen it earlier and he didn't go through those years, those horrible
Yeah.
years, but I didn't. And it wasn't like somebody was staring me in the face with a sign saying your kid has mental illness, don't you notice?
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
just live with it.
I'm so happy you say that, because those are such deep talks that I have as a therapist with families where I talk about, I'm not blaming you. I'm not throwing you under the bus. You're doing that to yourself, and unfortunately, that's just going to wear you down more and make it even harder to treat this person or be a part of this. So we don't approach therapy from the old ideas of it's always the mom's fault or things like that. And it's so sad that people, to me, still hold those ideas in their head, or people who maybe aren't familiar with mental health, or even the non-believers that there's, who just say, just stop it and just get over it, who can look at family sometimes and say, well, you missed it, you goofed up, it's your, and so my statement to you is thank you for what you do with the family support group and OCD SoCal, because I'm really hoping you're helping to break that stigma that's out there for that.
I hope so. I mean, we just have to live with guilt.
Yeah, it's a part of it, right?
It's just a part of it. Yeah.
And what you're doing and taking what you went through and giving the learnings of that to others so that they don't have to have all of that, I think is just great work. And that's something I'll always appreciate. And why, again, I wanted you here today too, because there has to be a celebration sometimes of adversity, right? Even of failure in some things. And families come in thinking they failed. And I want to change that narrative for them that, no, you just didn't know. But not knowing doesn't mean failure.
No.
Right?
No, because you've come in right now and you're doing something.
Right.
Because there are people that do know and still don't do something. So as soon as you found out, you're doing something.
The worst phrase I deal with in a lot of families, I should have known, I should have. And I'm sure you went through that, and you deal with people who go through that all the time.
Yeah. It doesn't get you anywhere in life.
No.
But it's not, I say that like it's easy to just put it aside. It's not easy to put aside, but I have to keep coming back to that. Is that useful? Is that useful right now for me to spend my time? I should have.
Right.
Yeah.
From that guilt, from those unfortunate feelings of failure that people have, I want to go back to Chris comes to you and says there's been a suicide attempt. It's got to rock your world. And you said a little, but I really want to go in depth on that. What were the feelings, the emotions that suddenly, I mean, in that moment, change in your life?
I mean, one of the things that I kept thinking about is if he had succeeded, I would never have known why. I would never have had any idea why this happened. And what I saw in front of me was a problem that needed to be solved. So it was an immediate, my son has a problem, and I got to find a way to fix this. And that just became the whole focus of my life. How are we going to fix this? I don't know if I was just naive. I didn't know at the time that you can't just fix it, you know. But that's how I saw it. That's my focus now. We've got Chris. This is not going to be my son's life. This just isn't going to be his life, and so we're going to fix it. And I had no idea that you could get better from it or not get better. I had no sense of hope at all because I had no background. Even the first conference I went to, nobody was getting better, and I left it without much hope either. Now the conference is so different. It's just one big weekend of hope. But at the time I thought, all these people, but that's not my son. He is going to be okay. He is. And I always believed that. Again, maybe I was naive, but I just always believed it, that he would get better. we would find the answer.
How long are you on guard? When do you finally, at some point then in this process, get a chance to go?
Well, the first breath was when we found the right therapist.
Okay.
But when Chris started to get better, as you may know, Chris talks a lot.
No, I don't know what you're talking about, Liz.
And on the positive side, I got to see inside an OCD mind for a while, usually at 2 a.m. And it was scary. Okay, I just got to say, it was scary. I could hear Chris's mind changing.
Yeah.
As he talked, it wasn't crazy anymore. And I realized this is working. It's working. He's coming here every week. He's doing the work, and he's changing. He doesn't talk like that anymore. So I knew at that point that it would get better, that we just had to keep going with it. And of course, I was constantly educating myself, so I knew it's an up and down, it's not linear. What was my role? What was I doing to support him, etc. But it just, as I trusted the therapist, but certainly as I saw some change in his thinking, I knew we were going to the other side. We were going to make it.
Mm-hmm. And you and Chris have talked a lot about this, even together. You've done kind of a short film together. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And what was the inspiration of that as well?
Chris and I wanted to tell you, when we first started a family group, we'd drive down there. This is pre-COVID. And we'd say, why are we doing this? It's Saturday morning. Why don't we sleep in late? Why are we doing this? Is anybody going to show up? And we'd leave the meeting going, oh, wow. Yeah, we're going to do this. It's just incredible when you just talk to somebody and you just maybe made their life a little better. And I get off the calls every time we do our family group, and it's like, wow, I just learned so much. I never thought of it that way, because that's not my experience. I had my experience. They had their experience. So it's just a give and take, and a community that just fills you up. And so for us to do it together, we just feel like it just feels wonderful to interact with people that understand all this. They give so much to us and explain things, and I understand things from a different way, and then we try to give to others. So yeah, this has definitely brought us very close, extremely close.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is this, it maybe is an overused phrase, and I apologize for that, but I mean, is this your purpose now, the thing that really drives you and gives you energy and focus?
It's one.
Yeah.
It's not my overall. I know for Chris, it's his whole focus and his purpose. It's one of mine. Yeah. There are times when we're putting together a conference that we both swear we're going to quit. we're going to quit. Yeah. We're going to quit. And then I have to go from my family going, I thought you were quitting. Well, next conference. Yeah. Because you just keep getting back. You just keep getting back from people.
I did hear you have some grandchildren recently, so they might be important as well, too, from what I heard.
They are. They are very important. They're so cute. They're 3 months old. But I can do more than one thing because I finally retired.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it is important. I mean, no matter how many times I've said, this is ridiculous, I would do too much work, I'm not going to do it, I never seem to quit. So
OCD does demand time from people. And if you look back, how much time was spent on Chris and OCD and treatment and relapses and all of those things?
Every minute.
Every minute, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the only priority. It was everything. I was very fortunate. I was able to finagle my job a little bit to go to the therapy. And other than that, it was, working with him to get better.
On the one hand, wonderful that you're able to do that. On the other hand, you have other children. And this, again, is one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you, because there are families out there who struggle with this, and we put all the effort that we can into the lives of our kids to make sure they're okay. But sometimes that might feel like it's at the expense of the other people in the family as well, too. How did you manage that?
I didn't manage it. I did it very poorly, and so I like to share that so that people will hopefully not do what I did. My daughter is a very sweet person, very quiet. She saw that Chris needed attention, so she did not ask for anything. That's the kind of person she is. And I was so overwhelmed with Chris that I thought, wow, she's doing great. You know, she's quiet, she's doing great. She was pretty much ignored, just pretty much ignored. She understands that more now. I mean, we've talked about it. I certainly have not used any excuses. It can't be that way. It shouldn't have been that way. But I was so overwhelmed with Chris that that's what did happen. She wanted to go to college, and she said, you know, I want to go away to college, and that was great. She finally got to go away and be on her own, and I just watched her blossom in college, not being surrounded by Chris and all his needs. But it wasn't the right way to do it. I mean, I think we did some Friday night McDonald's runs together or something. That's about it. It was always Chris, yeah.
What advice would you give to other families who are in a similar situation based on your ability to look back now and how you managed this?
First of all, I should have been talking to my daughter, finding out how she really was instead of assuming that a quiet child is doing great. And certainly to have carved out time for her. You know, I was under the delusion that if I did not spend every minute with Chris, then I was being a bad mom. You know, that's what a good mom would do, which is not necessarily true. And so giving time to my daughter was kind of taking time from somebody who really needed it, and that would be bad. It's a messed up thinking that, you know, it's easy in retrospect to say that it just isn't right for the other kids. At the time, it seemed like I felt like I didn't have any other choice. I needed to be there every minute. But obviously, in retrospect, I had choices, and I could have done it much better. The other thing is taking care of myself. I never did that because how am I going to go out and have fun while my son is sick? That felt like a horrible mother kind of thing. And, you know, people have said over and over, well, if you're not okay, how do you give to your kid? When you're feeling so overwhelmed, if you haven't gotten enough sleep and you haven't done anything, can you really respond well? And again, in retrospect, that makes perfect sense. But I was very tied up into the fact that a mom has to be there every minute if she wants to be a good mom to take care of this kid. And so it's not a good way.
I get it. I mean, I had a similar when my wife was dying. If I'm going to be a good husband, I have to be 24/7 there with her, around her. And I can't go out with a friend for a day or something. And it took a lot of people to finally convince me to follow the advice I give to everybody else.
I was going to say what we know and what we do. But, you know, exactly. That's exactly it. So
building on that idea that you can take a breath now, right? You know, what is life like post all the intensive therapy? Chris is doing well, right? He's now a therapist. He treats this. He's doing the red carpet stuff. Not that he doesn't struggle, of course, with things here or there, right? That we know this is not a cure, right? This is a condition that you will have lifelong, but you can learn how to live with it and manage it. How has your life kind of changed, and what has evolved for you?
Well, I will say, again, in pure honesty, one of the things I needed to do after was learn to separate from my kids because I was so close with Chris. And then also with my daughter because she ended up having some issues that I needed to take care of myself and learn how to be a much better parent, which is letting my kids be independent. So that was something I had to learn. And they weren't happy the first couple of months. But now, I mean, they are two totally independent people doing their lives. And so I'm just their mom who they like to make fun of and and do things like that.
Yeah.
And but we have a great relationship. The three of us have a very tight relationship. Um, Luckily, we've been able to let Selena's husband into it. But yeah, Selena. I mean, I don't. I think she's forgiven me because I think she understands now. Understands, and I think she understands. I kept most of it from Selena when she was in college because I thought it's just not fair. She spent her whole high school years being surrounded by Chris. She doesn't need this too. So she got to blossom. And I think she now understands that too, what I was trying to do. But I'm extremely close to both my kids, and they are extremely close too in a friendly sibling
Good.
way. Yeah. So, I mean, it's that part has all worked out very well. And they're very independent, they're very resilient. I don't worry if something happens because with what the two of them have gone through, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
They've got, they're not doormats, they're not pushovers. They can speak for themselves, they take care of themselves, they support themselves. They're independent and they are thriving. So
Amazing.
it is wonderful.
Mhm.
It is wonderful, yes. And I got my grandkids, so
No,
I'm
there you
done.
go. Yeah, you're happy now.
Yeah.
Thinking back though to Chris is in therapy, and he described for us like living in this little closet for a while.
Yes.
Where he's at, because maybe that's the only safe place, and there's multiple doors away from him and everybody else that harm won't come or something. For our listeners, they may be treatment naive and don't necessarily understand the process or the ups and downs of it. Could you describe for them what it's like as a parent to watch your child go through therapy, to maybe hit some ups and then some downs again, and because I know what I encounter as most parents, why isn't this done yet, why, so you're on the other side of it, and I just think that sage advice from you of having been through this would be so helpful.
And I will say I'm very happy that I didn't have to do that one wrong to be able to say right. I needed to learn everything I could about OCD, about ERP. I needed to understand it. And I feel like that's a parent's first obligation. Know what it is, understand what it is, so that I could understand that it's not linear, that it's up and down. And I knew that it was important, instinctively, you know that it's important to celebrate small things. So if Chris said, oh, instead of an hour, I took a 50-minute shower, that was a celebration.
Sure.
That was good. On the opposite side, he'd get, yeah, but when's it going to be 10 minutes? That doesn't do any good whatsoever. We would talk about what's the best way to support you when you're in this position or this condition. So I would know that this is not the time to say, Chris, this or that. I'm not sure I ever said, Chris, did you do your homework or this or that? That was between him and his therapist. So to me, I was just learning what is my role, which my therapist helped me to understand, and then also just through reading and stuff, what was it that I could do to support him? And, Chris, what support do you need from me? And I think that's where what's important is to find out what support the person wants, because not everybody wants the same support, not what support I think he should have. I never worried about was he going to catch up or anything like that. People start college at 30, 40, it doesn't matter. So I never worried about any of that. It was strictly for him to get better. That was the only focus. And sometimes we'll hear parents are kind of, worried about this or that or the other. And it's like, it's just a focus on getting better. That's the only thing that you need to do right now. But to support them, but also knowing that support is not reassuring them and not coddling
That's the hard
them.
part, isn't it?
It is. I will say, if you can do it with a therapist, we always suggest that. And, Chris was there, and of course, she knew how to do it right. And, it was wonderful to be able to say, I'm sorry, your therapist said I can't. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean he always said, oh, Mom, you're right. But it gave me that ability,
Yeah.
which I think if you do it on your own, it's harder to do it.
More guilt, maybe.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive. What you have to do as a mom with a person with OCD is just not what you expect to do as a mom. You
Right.
expect to go over and hug them and say everything's going to be okay. So to not do it feels icky. It
Yes.
just feels terrible.
Sure.
And what I would tell myself is, I'm asking him to do so many hard things. I can sit with this. I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to die. It's okay. My goal is that my son is independent. That's my goal. And if you keep that goal in mind, that that's what you want. And that sounds so simple, but we will run into people that say that's their goal, and yet they keep doing it. And they keep hearing that that's not helping them, but they can't stop for some reason.
Yeah.
And then those people keep coming back. And yeah.
Again, if I can go here,
Mm-hmm.
the role of your own therapy in this experience,
Mm-hmm.
how did that help you?
It helped me mainly through it was a 12-step program. I say it was CODA, Codependence Anonymous.
Okay.
And it was teaching me how to be a good parent and how to let my children grow independently on their own.
Mhm.
I did not go to personal therapy just because cost. I mean, this was all costing so much for Chris
Sure,
and my
sure.
daughter's college. But that's what I needed, was to understand that parenting is not, climbing all over your kid and doing everything for them and making sure and constantly worrying, did I worry enough? Or if I didn't worry enough, will they get in an accident? All of that stuff is to let them go and let them grow up. And, Chris had a lot of growing up to do after therapy. You just don't walk out of therapy and suddenly make up for all that time. And so, just helping me to learn, when did he need my help? When was he just wanting my help? What was I going to help him with? What could I just provide instructions on? And just balancing all the time, watching him grow up, basically, and figuring out when I needed to back up or I needed to intervene.
It can't be easy, obviously.
No, but I'm sure we do that all the time as parents. What does my kid need now? What does my kid not need? Should I be helping him with this? And so, yeah, I think the added part is, am I going to say something that'll trigger his OCD? Am I going to do something wrong? That kind of thing would always be in the back of my mind too, until I could feel sure that, I wasn't it wouldn't be me that would say something that might trigger it. But yeah, we did it. I would say we usually say about 2 years after his therapy finished that we were really he was trying to build his life again.
Sure.
What did he want to do?
The other thing I hear a lot, and I don't know if this was a part of your life or not, but what did I do to give my kid OCD? Did you ever have those questions for yourself or anything? Because I hear that a lot from parents, but maybe you did. I don't.
The first thing I did was go to the library and get some books on OCD.
Okay.
The first book I opened told me it was the mother's fault. And you know what? I closed the book and I said, I'm just not going to accept that
That was good.
I've screwed up.
Good choice on that one.
I just thought that just didn't sound right. Certainly, is it my family, my side of the family, whatever? Again, what can I do about that? I didn't do something like drink and take drugs while he was pregnant. I didn't do something that, if that happened, it happened. It's not something I did or I chose to do.
Yeah.
So, I can feel guilt, but I'm not going to punish myself because my family maybe had that.
Yeah. That's great. What advice would you give to people who keep searching for, what did I do wrong? How did I screw up my kid or something like that?
I think that the energy is in the wrong place. The energy should be in, what do I do now? What can I do now? The future. Because even if you were to find that magical answer, you still would have to come back to, okay, now what do I do? So spend your energy on it happened. Is it my fault? Is it my family? I don't know. But what can I do for my son now or my daughter that will give them the life that I want them to have? And that's
Right.
where the energy should go.
Yeah, I've often said we could spend 7 sessions trying to figure out why you're afraid of heights and discover in the 7th session you fell down a flight of stairs when you were 2, or we could start today on working on your fear of heights. Which would you prefer to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. With that focus of moving away from blame, moving away from guilt, moving toward the future, there's got to be a point in all of this where maybe you notice that Chris is not the main focus anymore. Right? Maybe in the middle of a dinner, oh, holy cow, I'm out with a friend.
Yes.
How did that, where did, what was that transition like for you to go from all in on this to you're getting your life back?
Well, I was more than thrilled. I did not have any desire to be that close raising my kid for the rest of my life. We did it in a slow way. It was about 2 years, so it didn't happen overnight. He didn't leave therapy, and I went on vacation. But I had said it was a balancing act, and I'll take an example. For example, because he got sick when he was a teenager, he'd never had a checkbook. Okay, so he's like, "Mom, where do you get a checkbook?" So that was something. So I would balance that and say, "Okay, I'll tell him he has to go to the bank, but I'm not going to go with him because he doesn't need me to go with him. This is not back then." And if he says, "Well, would you just go with me?" No, I don't think you need me to go with you. You can do that. Just go to the bank, bring some money, and go speak to this person. And then he'd come back. Yeah, I opened a check. No big deal. That kind of thing. But then there was another time he got a ticket, and I thought, okay, this is something, if he doesn't respond to it, could affect his future.
Right.
So I got support. He was down there with his dad at that time, and I got support and said, you need to get him to that class, because he wouldn't have gone. So I would look at, what do I need? What is it that I need to do that might affect his life? And what is it that is just kind of give a little guidance? And what might he need my hand for? I think he would, like calling a government office, I'd say, okay, I'll stay by the phone because that is so confusing. But I'm not going to call for you.
Right.
So it was just kind of balancing and figuring out how he could become independent, et cetera. And then as I became independent, I tried to find some old friends, tried to do some stuff, tried to relax. That was just wonderful. And then as I said, I decided to take care of some of my own problems with parenting and try to be a better parent for them as they got older.
In that parenting role, you are not the only parent of Chris. There's another person involved too. How do you coordinate that care? And are you both on the same page about it as well too?
I tried to in the beginning because it seemed to me our child is sick. Would that not become your top priority? I did not get anything supportive. I got a lot of, because he refused to educate himself, I got a lot of dumb comments, negative comments, I'm just going to go turn off the water, that kind of thing. And I decided very early, after a couple of attempts, that the negative that I was getting was harming me more than anything I might get, and just severed all ties as far as OCD goes. Never bothered him again. He's occasionally supported his son. He's occasionally listened to something, not come to conferences when they're in LA and that kind of thing. So because Chris is a little bit stubborn, that actually helped.
What?
I know he talks a lot and he's a little stubborn, but that actually helped, did guide him in one way too, because he'd say, I'm going to show him. They are so mean to me and they're so non-supportive that I'm going to show him I can do this. But I do know he preferred to have somebody celebrating things with him. But I do think if the other person or your family or somebody is negative and non-supportive, don't spend your energy trying to change them. I mean, you could give them something to read, and if they still say whatever, spend your energy on your child and not on trying to convince somebody else that, they really need to take care of this, because it's not going to
Yeah.
work.
And that can go for grandparents and brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, cousins,
Yeah.
all those kinds of
Yeah.
things as well, too. Right?
And now with my sisters, I chose not to really talk about it, which was another failing, because I thought I was burdening them with my problems. They have their own life. Why did they want to know about my problems? And when they did find out, they were not happy with me. That's our nephew. How could you not have told us? How
Yeah.
could you not have got us support? So I lost out on that support, being just, again, distorted thinking, just being crazy about my thinking.
Maybe there's a theme here of sometimes we've got to take some risks, and we might not always get the answers we want, but if we don't take them, we're not going to get any answers at all.
As for support, people are surprisingly open to supporting you, especially if you can tell them what you need. That's the problem. A lot of times it's like, well, what support do you need from me? And you can tell them. One support I needed was, hey, Christmas time, I don't have any money for presents. I'm sorry. And everybody was like, no problem. I didn't have to feel guilty that I couldn't do Christmas. So ask for it. Just ask for it.
Yeah.
The other thing I found is I started talking about it when people would ask. I didn't try to hide it. It is surprising how many people know somebody with OCD.
Yes.
Yes. When you do start to talk about it.
Yes, I would agree. And at the same time, probably things that you deal with OCD SoCal is it's also a term that many people know but totally misuse.
Right.
What is your feeling about educating people about what OCD truly is?
I think that there are so many resources. We direct people to the IOCDF website all the time, but we also direct them to all kinds of different, including NOCD.
Thank you.
But, we have every month after our support group, we do a resource email. And we send out whatever questions they ask, we send out resources. So we send them to podcasts and books and people to listen to. There is so much out there. And we always suggest, if you're trying to educate somebody else, find what they like. Somebody might read an article. Somebody else might say, just put on a podcast, or while I'm driving, I'll listen to it. But the more education people have, then the more they understand what their child or their loved one is doing in therapy, and they can support them better. So that's the education. There's just a lot, and we just keep directing people to resources, whatever we can find.
If there's a message you would want to send to families who have been in your position, what are the things you want to tell folks? First
of all, find the resources and support you need. We run a support group. Many people run a support group. It's a place that you can get not only community, but you can get answers. And you can get people to direct you to the right place to get answers. You can find out what other people are doing and what might work, and et cetera. So get that education, continually educate yourself. Go to the conference if you can. It's hard to go every year. It's kind of expensive, but go every couple of years. Go to groups, listen to things online. There's so many different things. And form some kind of community. If there's something going on in your area, go to it.
A walk or something.
Anything, go to it. We are surprised at times when people say, oh, that's 20 minutes away. And we think, wow, we drove several hours to get to something. Meeting other people and knowing them. I'm glad I've met you instead of just online.
Right.
We have people we've met. You have a chance to meet them in person, sit down with them, talk to them, and grow your own OCD community. And then when you go to a conference, you see people and you feel like you have people that really understand your life. They understand what you are living through and what your life is like. And I think that's really important. There's a lot online, but if you have a chance to meet people, meet people.
And the conference for the OCD conference is so unique because it's not just people who treat OCD, it's people who have it and their families and their friends. And it's such a mix of folks. And it'll be in Chicago next year, actually. So very
I'm going to
excited
be
about
there.
that. Well,
Of course.
we're hanging out.
Yeah.
If that's the case.
Oh, the conference is incredible. The conference is incredible that you can speak to anybody, anytime. None of you guys get a big head. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that for the people who think I have one. So I really appreciate that you're validating that for me very
Yeah.
much.
No, it is. I know the last conference I went to was at San Francisco.
Mhm.
And I thought, I'm just going to talk to people I don't know. And it was so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, nobody said, who are you? But it was great. I just keep talking to people. And every time you just learn something new or just find out some different way somebody handled something, or they introduce you to something you didn't even know existed, a resource that
Right.
you could do. So it is great. But, you know, we started our family group in person, and there's people that we are so close to that we knew in person.
Yeah.
Now it's online, and a lot of times we don't even know who's online.
Right.
You know, we don't have the same relationship. So you need community. You need people that you feel so comfortable talking about your child with, or your loved one. And you need to just keep learning so that you are supporting that person in the best way that you can.
I hear similar things in the NOCD community too, through the NOCD app. It's probably the largest OCD community in the world at this point, and it is actually large. And it's just so exciting to see the support that people give each other on there as well too. But any community, you always have to monitor as well too, right? You know, there's chances for reassurance and all those types of things too. So we're always on our toes working with OCD because, as you know, it is a sneaky, sneaky condition, and we'll try to get what it wants at all time, right? Yeah. Well, Liz, I think that this was great. Thank you so much for being here today and for being so open about this as well too, because there are families out there who feel alone, who are struggling, who hold this as a secret or a source of shame or something. And you've helped today break some of the silence and some of that stigma. And I really think that we're doing great work and if we can do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for watching again today. This has been the Get to Know OCD podcast. Check us out at NOCD.com if you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions. And if you like what you saw today, you can subscribe to the NOCD YouTube channel to watch more episodes of the Get to Know OCD podcast. We'll be back again soon. Talk to you later.